Hi, everybody. I'm really delighted to be joined today by Lia Castiglione. And Lia's going to tell us about the courses that she's going to be offering for 2025 to 26 on access arrangements. You're offering one talking about assessments for extra time, which I know is a huge area, but a really important area, I think, for people to understand.
Yeah, well, assessments for extra time is very important because, of course, extra time, 25% extra time is overwhelmingly the most um, common access arrangement, the most commonly awarded one that we need to apply for. So we need to be getting this right. And there are lots of different tests that can be used to assess for extra time. So in that session, we'll be looking at all the different areas that you can use when we're considering a student's needs for extra time. We'll be thinking about some of the tests that are available that are perhaps more unusual, that maybe aren't so frequently used, but do provide good evidence. There's always new tests coming onto the market. I can think of a couple of tests right now that are either about to be published or newly published that will offer the opportunities to be used for access arrangements evidence, focusing on that extra time. So we'll be able to go through all of that. And then, as well as showing how those tests can be used to gather that assessment evidence for extra time, also thinking about when they can't be used. So what would be the reasons why you might not be able to use a particular measure, reading speed, writing speed, and there are some other measures that have particular uses within the extra time evidence. And then also thinking about how that would look when you're recording it on the Form 8 as well. So it's always useful for people, I think, to see examples of how those tests are recorded. So within all of my courses, I like to include lots of resources and handouts for people to use going forward within their practice. So that's something that's going to be, I think, really useful for that particular course.
Fantastic, Lia. Thank you. One of the really popular courses this year has been access arrangements for EAL learners and assessing EAL learners. So I wonder if you could tell us a bit about the course that you're offering for 2025-26.
Absolutely. It's a very important area, and it's not a well understood area. It's a challenging area to get it right for EAL learners in relation to their access arrangements needs. There's really two parts to this course. We're thinking about, first of all, what can we do for EAL learners in exams purely on the basis of English being an additional language? What access arrangements are out there for that, and how do we evidence those? That's one side. But then we need to think about, what about if that we've got a student who's got English as an additional language and it becomes apparent that they need either extra time or a scribe. Those two arrangements cannot be awarded on the basis of English being an additional language. We need to show that there are other issues. So there are underlying learning difficulties, for example. How on earth do we do that? That's a very complex area. So what we're doing within this course is really focusing on how to establish underlying learning difficulties in a learner who's got English as an additional language in a way that is going to satisfy the requirements for JCQ. How we would then document that, what are our processes within that, both within the centre and in terms of the assessment evidence that we need, and then what that would look like on the Form 8 as well.
Thanks, Lia. As you say, a really, really complex area, but so important, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Thanks. One of the questions we're often asked at Pathos comes from people who are perhaps just starting in a role as a Senko, or perhaps they've just finished a level 7 qualification as a diagnostic assessor. And the whole world of access arrangements provision is new to them.
Yeah.
So I believe that you've developed a course that is specifically for that person.
Absolutely. Foundations in access arrangements. And it does what it says on the tin. It is a very in-depth course, but it does give you that underpinning understanding of the regulations. Now, it's a 5-hour course. So rather than having people sit for a whole day, we actually talked to the delegates that did the course this year, and their preference was very much the format that we used this year, which was to split the course over 2 sessions in consecutive weeks to give them time to consolidate that first set of information and then move on to the next set of information. So that I think that works really well, that format. It looks at the whole access arrangements world, really, starting with the principles of access arrangements. Why do they exist? Who are they for? And then it goes into each of the access arrangements that are available, the evidence requirements for those, which form we use and when. It looks at your record keeping systems and how to make applications for access arrangements, so that by the end of this course, people have a really good grounding in access arrangements. So it's really for those people that are either completely new to access arrangements, they may be, as you said, in a new SENCO role, or they may have come off a level 7 course and think, I really do need to get that thorough insight into access arrangements, and that's what this course is for. It's also for people who perhaps have been out of access arrangements for a while, or have always been never felt completely confident. And if you want that confidence and you want that sort of really thorough investigation into access arrangements, then this would be a really good course for those people as well.
Thanks, Lia. Of course, one of the most challenging areas of completing the forms is gathering that background information, especially for part 1 of Form 8. And you're offering a course on precisely that subject too.
Yes, and it's something that I get asked about a lot when I do my work within schools and colleges. You know, how do we get people on board with this whole centre approach? Because that's the challenge, isn't it? Because we don't want to see access arrangements as something that happens within the special needs department, but is a bit of a mystery within your centre. It has to have that whole centre approach. So this course is aimed at showing how we can encourage a whole centre approach, what types of systems that we can use for information gathering, how to get our teaching staff on board with that. Might be looking at sort of information sheets for teachers, training sessions for teachers, but also really importantly, a good aspect of this course is the handouts that go with it, the resources, because there's lots of different resources there that you could use as templates and documents to help you to gather that centre-based information, whether you're doing that through a paper-based system, or increasingly now people are using an online system, and we'll go into the detail about that. So I think it's a really important aspect of the regulations that sometimes we're so focused on getting that assessment evidence that we forget about the whole centre-based evidence aspect that needs to come, whether we're doing Form 8, Form 8RF or Form 9. Actually, we are going to need that centre-based evidence of need and normal way of working. So that's what this course is all about. Later on in the year, we also have a Q&A session. So that Q&A is going to be, again, Nick and myself. What worked very well in the session that we did in 2024-25 is that people were encouraged to submit their questions in advance. So this Q&A session takes place in December. So it gives people the opportunity to have had that term working with the new regulations and getting to grips with them. And what often happens is once you start, you might feel, yes, I've got a good grounding. Once you start, that's when the questions can start to happen. So that timing of that is quite important, I think, because it gives people the opportunity to think, okay, I want to get this ironed out. So people would submit their questions in advance. We would then go through all of those, and people would also have the opportunity in the session to ask questions as well. And that can relate to anything to do with the regulations, the changes for the new academic year, but also there might be something that's been niggling you. You never quite understood that properly. That's your opportunity to ask, and you'll get it, straight from the horse's mouth. Nick will be there. I will also be there. So if there's things to do with tests, instruments, or anything else that that I can help to answer with, then we've got those. We've got those insights there. I think it's called Experts Insights or something like that. So hopefully that's going to be a useful session for people.
Fantastic, Lia. Thank you so much. You've already mentioned, of course, that access arrangements goes beyond the assessor, goes beyond a SENCO. It's a whole centre thing, isn't it? And you've got a couple of courses that look at the broader picture. The first of those is a course for invigilators. So I wonder if you could tell us about that.
So it's invigilators, but also those adults that are in supporting roles. So the readers, the scribes, the practical assistant, the prompter, and all of those other adults that fulfill those roles within access arrangements, because it's very important that they understand the nuances of their role when they're working with the student in exams, as opposed to when they're working with a student in the classroom. It may be that those people are working, they may be a teaching assistant, a learning support assistant, working with students in the lessons. What they can do and the level of support that they give in lessons is different to what they can offer in exams. So it's really important that they understand that and that centres are clear on that. So this looks at each of those. It looks at the invigilation arrangements around those supporting roles, and then it also looks at those supporting roles and how they are used within an exams setting.
Thank you. And last, but certainly by no means least, we have a course which is looking at the JCQ inspection and trying to take away elements of fear and dread from that.
Absolutely. We don't want people to feel dread and fear about the access arrangements inspection, but people do have that worry about it. We all want to get it right, don't we? We don't want to be seen to be getting anything wrong. We want to do the best job for our students, and therefore this course is aiming to give people confidence in meeting the needs of their access arrangements inspection successfully. So the course focuses very much on the centre inspection around access arrangements. Of course, there are other JCQ inspections, for example, the general inspection that looks more at security, but we're thinking about that access arrangements inspection, and it takes you through that whole process from the moment the inspection starts, the inspector turns up within your centre, to the end of the process. So the timeline of what will happen during that visit, who needs to present that evidence, what they're going to be asking to look at, and how you can make sure that all of your files and systems are going to be in line with that inspection process. We're also going to consider the outcomes of the inspection and what the possible outcomes are, and then the next steps, depending on what your outcome is and how you would deal with that. So by the end of this session, people are going to feel really confident that if that inspector turns up tomorrow, I'm ready. I know what I need to do. I know what they're going to be asking for. And I've got a sort of a tick list of have I got everything ready for the inspector? So that's what this course is all about.
Fantastic. So we'll have lots of happy JCQ inspectors as well.
Yes, absolutely. Let's hope so.
Thank you so much, Lia. Thank you for taking the time today to talk to us about your courses. They sound completely fantastic. They're covering such a wide range of issues to do with access arrangements, and there may be more courses added as well.
Absolutely.
It goes without saying, everybody, that if you attend one of the sessions, you can do so live. If you attend live, you'll have the benefit of being able to ask questions to Lia at the end of each of the sessions. If you can't attend live, though, don't worry, you can always purchase the webinar on demand. Either way, you'll have access to the webinar for 2 weeks after the date when you first access it. So you have plenty of opportunities to go back and revisit the content. And in some of those courses, Leah, I think you would certainly recommend that revisiting.
Yes, yes. There's some quite complex information. The regulations aren't straightforward. They are quite nuanced, and actually giving you that opportunity to go back and revisit and, oh, I just want to listen to that section again, it is really helpful for people. I think there's a lot to digest, I think, sometimes, and knowing that you don't have to have it just in one go is really helpful for people.
Absolutely. It takes the pressure off, doesn't it?
Does, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Fabulous. Thank you so much, Leah. I'm really looking forward to your courses.
Thank you.